The only way out is up. Leap of faith, leap of faith, leap of faith, leap of faith. Only thing to do, only thing to do is jump. Only thing to do is jump over the moon. Only thing to do is jump over the moon, over the moon, over the leap of faith, leap of faith, leap of faith, leap of faith, moo with me. Please, sir, could you give me a little moo? Yes, yes, moo with me. Yes, moo with me. Yes, that's beautiful. Moo, let me in. Thank you.
When I was 9 years old, I went to see Spider-Man at the cinema. I don't know if any of you have seen it. 2002, Spider-Man by Sam Raimi, starring Tobey Maguire and Kirsten Dunst. Anyone a fan? Good. It was the pinnacle moment in my long-standing childhood love affair with that web-swinging, wall-crawling, heartbreaking hero. In fact, it was probably one of the best days of my life. The British Board of Film Classification had just invented the 12A category, which Spider-Man fell into, and the A that had the honour of accompanying me was my mum. I think my sister was there as well. I can't really remember. All I know is that on that day, I witnessed a piece of cinematic history which would change my life forever. That's what I want to talk about tonight, if that's all right. Yes, Spider-Man's 2002, Sam Raimi's 2002 blockbuster smash hit Spider-Man, starring Tobey Maguire and Kirsten Dunst. Specifically, actually, I'd quite like to talk about a 2-minute scene from that film. Maybe you know the scene. It isn't a very remarkable one. On its own, it actually looks like something more suited to a rom-com than a superhero flick, but it's an interesting scene. First of all, it's one of the few scenes actually shot in New York City, and you can see this straight away because of the diner. The diner is called Moondance, and it was an iconic fixture of Manhattan for about 60 years before it was sold and transported to Wyoming. You might even recognize this diner. It's the place that Monica went to work at in Friends, where she had to wear those big fake tits and a blonde wig. It was a popular hangout for the girls in Sex and the City, apparently. And it's also the diner that Jonathan Larson worked in for 2 years, just before he wrote the musical Rent, which springboarded him out of waiterdom and into fame. Moondance. It's the kind of place you think about when you think of a typical American diner. Blue vinyl stools at the counter where you eat your key lime pie, little booths of blue plastic where you'd fill up an endless black coffee poured by a surly waitress with a heart of gold. The kind of place that was filled with sorrow all through the 30s, sailors through the 50s, smoke in the 60s and 70s and 80s, and a looming nostalgia in the 90s and noughties that gave it a quiet fame. But even that couldn't save it. Kitsch and cumbersome, it needed to be moved to make room for the wealthy wave of hipsters that were and are slowly encroaching on every impoverished area of every major city in the West. Anyway, sorry, that's a bit of a tangent. Spider-Man, the scene. When this scene starts, Mary Jane, played by Kirsten Dunst, is leaving the diner in a hurry. She's walking along really fast, and she doesn't notice Peter. Now, Peter, a.k.a. Spider-Man, a.k.a. Tobey Maguire, he clocks her. And by this point in the film, he hasn't seen her since high school, which was like ages ago, so he calls after her. But she thinks it's just another leering, random catcall, so she goes, "Buzz off!" But he follows her. He's in love with her, by the way. And when he gets to her, he's like, "How's it going?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm a big shot actress now." Even though she's not, she's just a waitress at this diner. And basically, he realizes that she's lying, but he doesn't care. But then he finds out that she's actually seeing his best mate, Harry, and he's like, "What?" And it's awkward. I feel like I'm not really doing the scene justice. It's actually... Could I actually have some music and different lights or something? Perfect. Soho, Manhattan in the early noughties, an area on the cusp of gentrification. The filthy street is filled with noise and colour. The yellow taxicabs slow to a crawl and blare aimlessly into this vast and grimy palette. A few vagrants are sat drinking on the sidewalk from brown paper bags. Street vendors are vending, people are spending, cultures are blending. Nothing on Twitter is trending because Twitter hasn't been invented yet. New York is this never-ending cacophony of squawking and talking and "Hey, I'm walking here's," and it's been barely a year, and the city is mending. Some are pretending, some barely comprehending, but everybody carries on. It's this stiff upper lipness that we usually associate with the British, but the truth is, everybody does it. It's daytime on 6th Avenue, but a large crescent moon is slowly circling just above the iconic Moondance diner. The very blue-silver chromium diner where Jonathan Larson, waiting tables and serving coffee and making rent, started... Well, making rent. It's 2002. 6 years since Larson woke up to find himself dead one cold January morning. And 6 years from now, the dilapidated diner will also fall on a different cold January morning. Weary from Wyoming winter, the walls will start moaning, they will buckle, they will splinter, and the Moondance will collapse in on itself, destroying almost everything inside except the revolving crescent moon. But let's return to this Soho scene. It's 2002. A young woman with red hair is hurriedly leaving the diner. She's wearing a beige overcoat like a film noir detective and bears all the body language of a street-weary New Yorker. Head down, eyes averted, Mary Jane dodges traffic and hurries by so quickly she doesn't notice her old pal Peter Parker. Maybe it's because her dreams have been crushed over and over and over, or maybe it's because her name is an outdated nickname for drugs. But MJ has this hard edge that is typical of Manhattanites, the kind of cool exterior that can usually only be penetrated by dodgy street food or large-scale acts of international terrorism. Peter Parker freezes in wide-eyed disbelief. There are 8 million people in this city, and who does he bump into? His high school fucking crush. He gets this rush of sudden carnality. It's like his spidey sense, but with added sensuality. MJ makes his tummy tingle. She makes his throat close so that he can hardly speak. She makes his palms moist. She makes his webbing leak. "Hey!" He chases after her. "Buzz off," she says, without looking round. But when he reaches her, she melts immediately. And she smiles. And it's not that purse-lipped, suffocating smile that she's forced to give when she's serving coffee or taking orders, but this beautiful, beaming, breathless grin, which feels like brunch on Sunday, which feels like butter melting into warm bagels. She pulls her coat tightly, instinctively round her so that Peter won't see that she's a waitress at Moondance because she is ashamed. Just like Monica from Friends was also ashamed. Which does make you wonder how they kept on getting staff. I mean, I know no publicity is bad publicity, but it does kind of send out the wrong signals, to potential employees. Work here for the shame. Anyway, Peter is looking into MJ's eyes. And when he looks in her eyes, all Peter's problems seem to melt away because he loves MJ. because they are gorgeous eyes, green, mesmeric as a slowly revolving crescent, and when Pete looks at them he feels an overwhelming, dizzying release. Maybe peering into them for him is like coming home to Queens. Maybe they remind him of his mother's eyes. Maybe green is his favorite color, the dress code for unripe bananas, another slang term for marijuana. Maybe somehow he spidey senses her soul. All we know is that these bad boys put Peter over the moon. And he knows that he needs MJ, that he wants to catch her up in a giant web and wrap her up like a cocoon and take her in his arachnoid arms and confide in her and finally get inside her and scream, MJ, MJ, I'm part fucking spider! And she won't mind. She'll barely bat an eyelid. But together they'll hang up his spandex suit and they'll get married and have beautiful children and move back to Queens or maybe into some new built luxury condo in the city. Him, a freelance photographer, her, an actress who mostly does theatre, occasionally a bit of telly, and they'll lead this comfortable, creative, middle-class life and retire at 60 and move out to Florida or somewhere to spend their autumn years growing old and bony in each other's loving arms. They'll have led a quiet, beautiful life filled with date nights and sunsets and trip to Central Park with the kids. And for a while, whenever a building explodes or a giant octopus roams the streets, Peter will feel this tingle at the top of his neck, at the base of his spine, this urge to step in. But then he'll look into MJ's eyes and he'll look at his children and he'll know that some things are more important than playing hero. And over time, he'll do what everybody does. He'll carry on. He'll put all that shit to the back of his mind where it slots so comfortably and neatly. And sure, he'll raise his kids to be good and principled and kind, and they'll give to charity and watch the news. And when he throws his nickels to the homeless guy on the corner of 6th Avenue, he'll get his kids to do the same, and it will be his proudest hour, because with great responsibility comes great Peter Parker processes this perfect possibility. This practical and plausible and painless possibility, this plain work pattern life of pets and plans and palpability, and then he remembers the late Uncle Ben's advice, which, like the great Uncle Ben's rice, lingers on the palate so sweet and so sour that with great responsibility comes great power. And all of those possibilities suddenly seem so impossible, so impractical, so implausible.
The only way out is up.
MJ, it's me, Peter. Hi. What are you doing around here? Oh, I'm begging for a job. How about you? MJ is caught off guard. Her eyes dart upwards to the right, in the direction of the moon that still lingers in shot. This indicates that she's about to tell a lie. Oh, I'm headed to an audition. If this is Mary Jane's best acting, I wouldn't really hold out much hope, but Peter, blinded by love, laps it up. An audition? So you're acting now? And encouraged by Peter's positivity, MJ trundles on with this lie, full speed ahead, accumulating unnecessary detail, amalgamating fact and fantasy as she goes. Yeah, she says, I work steady. In fact, I just got off a job. That's great, MJ. You're doing it. You're living your dream. But MJ is not living her dream. MJ is briefly living a lie.
The only way out is up.
I did ask for blackout in this bit, but I've realized that I can't actually read my script. Sorry. Thank you, sorry. Is everyone following so far? I feel like it's a lot to take in. I was going to just show you the scene at the start, but then the projector wasn't, and then I thought it would just ruin the magic, you know, because I could just describe it to you, because I'm a poet. Reality is what we make it. And for the briefest of moments, MJ has altered her reality. With a flick of her eyes, she has bent the spoon, shaken the cosmos, jumped over the moon. This is a moment from the original screenplay, which was later cut. Exterior, Chelsea Street, day. We're looking through the glass doors of Moondance, a seedy-looking diner downtown. Screenplays often do that. They say we to kind of put you in the moment. Inside, we see Mary Jane Watson wearing a hideous orange waitress uniform being berated by a surly cook. And surly cook is all in capitals so that you know that's the character's name. She punches a time clock, grabs a raincoat, and stalks out of there. It's a sunny afternoon in downtown Manhattan. The filthy streets are filled with noise and colour, people and smells. It's difficult to tell what's real and what's not. Sam Raimi sits on high, directing to cameras and crew, to actors and extras and traffic like a divine and omnipotent God. It's almost as if he has furnished this street with its very filth, with its dirty grills and garbage cans and the men that are sprawled out on the sidewalk. It's almost as if the Moondance were a piece of set dressing designed by Raimi for this very moment. The diner's doors open and a woman hurries out, but we barely notice. We are stood on the corner of 6th Avenue eating a hot dog from the hot dog vendor. We are enjoying this dog, as we call it, because we're New Yorkers. We say. Needs mustard. We reach out towards the condiment stand, but it topples over. Upon further inspection, we realize that the entire hot dog stand is just a flimsy cardboard cutout. Cut! 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 Sam Raimi begins to shout. We look up at him. He looks unhappy. Everybody looks at us, the cab drivers, the guys on the sidewalk, the woman with the dyed red hair glinting in the sun. It's a sunny afternoon in downtown Manhattan. Peter Parker, a high school graduate and recent recipient of radioactive spider powers, is looking for a part-time job. He's headed to the Daily Bugle, a local tabloid newspaper, to inquire about positions for photographers. For you see, Peter, as well as a budding scientist and recent recipient of radioactive spider powers, is quite the talented photographer. He's also just moved from the suburbs to the city, and he doesn't know the area so well. Truth be told, the offices of the Bugle are located somewhere uptown, so he has no real need to be in Soho. He must be really fucking lost. He takes out his BlackBerry to try and get an Uber before remembering that Uber hasn't been invented yet. He's about to hail a cab when he sees her, the woman he has been in love with for most of his life, Kirsten Dunst. Kirsten, who grew up in the house next door to Peter and even attended the same school before achieving international fame with her role in Interview with a Vampire. In fact, Peter had recently been to the movies to see the film Crazy Beautiful. Is that what it's called? Yep. Which he enjoyed immensely. And he was about to tell her as much when a black Bentley pulled up outside the Moondance and the elegant Miss Dunst got in. He never saw her again. Exterior, day, 2002. A red-headed woman stalks out of the Moondance diner. Exterior, day, 1988. We see through the windows of the Moondance diner. Jonathan Larson is bustling about, wiping tables and clearing the grease from salt cellars. He begins to hum a tune. He freezes, clutching a J-cloth in one hand and a plastic squeezy tomato in the other. He starts singing softly to himself. The only thing to do is jump over the moon. Exterior, day, 2001. A plane passes overhead. A couple of New Yorkers look towards it and point. Exterior, day, 2007. The proprietor of the Moondance is putting up a sign. The diner has been sold so that a luxury condominium can be built on 6th Avenue. Where will Samantha, Charlotte, Miranda, and Carey go for coffee now?
Beady bong. The only way out is up.
Thank you.
Beady bong.
Thank you for that. Thank you for telling me those names, by the way, Freya. That's really useful. You know what it's like when you bump into someone that you went to school or college or uni with that you haven't seen for ages, and they say, "So what are you doing now?" You kind of, in a way, you kind of have to assume that they are actually saying, "So what do you do now for money?" Like, you can't really just jump in saying, "Oh, I've been learning French," or "I've been doing some really cool poetry recitals lately," because that's not going to interest them at all. They don't care about that. Sorry, I thought I'd do a bit of impromptu stand-up then, but just look at my notes. If there is something going on in your life that you think might actually impress them, you might be tempted to say something like, "Oh, I just auditioned for X Factor," or, "I've just been bitten by a radioactive spider." And this is assuming that you want to talk to them at all, because, the truth is, if you haven't been in touch with this person for the last 5, 10, 15 years, then you're probably going to want to keep it nice and concise, short and sweet. And admitting that you're a masked superhero vigilante, that's just opening up a whole can of worms. But the thing is, whether you like this person or not, you will probably feel an innate need to impress them because, I don't know, high school and uni, they're very competitive environments, and maybe seeing this person will make you think, "Fuck, what am I doing with my life?" Because the answer, quite honestly, to what are you up to now? It's probably not a fucking lot. Apart from this. So when Peter quite innocently asks, "How about you?" I completely understand the look of fear that creeps into MJ's eyes. And she was like the most popular girl at school, and that makes it worse, and she decided not to go to college because she really thought she could make something of herself, and she probably feels like a bit of a failure right now, which is crazy because this is Peter, our mild-mannered, kind-hearted hero, the boy next door, the quiet, sensitive, brilliant guy who wouldn't harm a fly. Him with his cool blue eyes and his endearing, slightly chubby face. With a boy like Peter, you can be yourself because Peter is sweeter than almost everybody else. With his hamsterish features and his goofy little mouth, Peter's love will never peter out. In the shot behind MJ, a large, grizzled New Yorker looms into view. This is the surly cook from the kitchen, and he's about to tear apart MJ's flimsy web of deceit and embarrass her in front of her old pal Pete. "Hey, glamour girl," he shouts, "your drawer was short $6. And because this is New York City, Peter is probably pretty used to people shouting crazy things in the street. So he glances over the road, but when he looks back, MJ, her face has fallen, and she doesn't know where to look. "Excuse me, Miss Watson. Hey, I'm talking to you." That was it. Thank you for listening.